We're very grateful to CavanKerry and the wonderful poets there for joining us. For a few years now, they've been involved in outreach service to Caldwell. And this semester, since we weren't able to do our service learning project at the Caldwell Public Library, we're coming together for a reading on Google Hangouts. And today we're very, very happy to have Paola, Corso, Doty, and Cindy Veach read for the students. So I wanted to just take a minute to acknowledge we do have some people present from CavanKerry, and including the founder and publisher, Joan Cusack-Handler. So Joan, would you like to say a few words?
I'm just delighted. I'm sitting here thinking that, you know, there are faces here that I don't know, but names and books I have committed to memory. So it's really a thrill. And it's a thrill to hear CavanKerry poets read together for other poets. So thank you, and I feel blessed and honored to be here.
So happy to have you, and also wanted to mention Dimitri by name. We had a joke yesterday that we had so many emails going. So thank you, Dimitri, for all the work and all the emails. He's marketing coordinator for the press. So, well, anyway, all right. So let's begin, and we're going to start with Paola, Corso.
Okay. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here too. I was asked to give a little introduction, and I can tell you that I'm the daughter of Southern Italian immigrants who came through Ellis Island and landed in the Pittsburgh area, where family members found work in the steel mills, in the glass plants, in the mirror works, various industries. And all of my books are set in the Pittsburgh area. They have a strong sense of place and draw from my Italian-American working class background. So I'm going to read a few poems from my book, The Laundress Catches Her Breath, published by CavanKerry Press. And I'm particularly proud of this book for two reasons. One is, having just said what I said, this book won an award from the Working Class Studies Association, the Tilly Olson Award for Creative Writing. And that means a great deal to me because it really validates my commitment to and importance in writing about workers and witnessing their working lives. That's my passion. So and the second reason, which is we're all here together and Joan just said it, is I feel very honored to be part of the CavanKerry Press family. That also means a great deal to me. And the sense of community that they build and the commitment that they have. Here we all together, poets, staff members, professors, students. This is really wonderful, and I thank you. Okay, I'm going to read some poems from the beginning of the book and toward the end of the book, because it's a movement. One person who blurbed this book called this was a poignant documentary verse. And I think that's a good way to describe it. I can tell you that I was inspired to write about the laundress when, and this is a person, this is a family member, when I was looking through old photographs and I kept seeing lots of laundry in the background. There was always a line of clothes being hung, and it really struck me. And I said, you know, I've got to address this. And I thought about it, and I remember my grandmother hanging the clothes on the line in her yard, and my mother doing the same, and my generation, my cousin, the laundress, very, very much continuing this ritual. So let me start with some poems, and I know that Mary Ann said to keep this 15 minutes or so, and that's what I will try to do. Okay, So this first poem is called Bias. She washes colors but prefers whites. Bleaching streaks of yellow and mottled gray, grease on her apron from a shift at the fryer, stains that can't hide in dyes of mulberry or hunter green. She takes them on, face to face, like schoolgirls she fought and snapped in two. She walks away with a loose tooth that she yanks out, tarred from cigarette smoke. She couldn't get it white, no matter how hard she scrubbed. This next poem is called Step by Step with the Laundress. 1. It's easier to wash clean clothes if wearing clean clothes. A saying adapted from your college-educated uncle who says it's easier to find a job if you have a job when he hears you chewed out stubby for cutting back your hours at Eaton Park. 2. Sort clothes in neat piles on the basement floor beside the safe where your father, Mr. 20 Horns, stashes company photos from meal picnics and prayer cards for every deceased member of the family, alphabetized by saint. 3. Check pockets for matches, lighters, cigarettes left from break, a string of beads Unc bought for job interviews, but you wore to bar bingo and stuffed in a pocket because it felt like bugs around your neck. 4. Load the washer, set the dial, and pour in double the detergent, knowing old man 20 Horns waters it down since you told him to either stop buying the cheap-ass Giant Eagle brand or you'd quit doing his laundry. 5. As soon as the clothes are submerged in soapy water, have a cigarette and listen to Tom Jones until the line, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, she's a lady," or your butt burns out, whichever comes first. 6. When the load begins to agitate, drink your coffee on the porch beside your grandmother's scrub board and hand wringer that 20 Horns will make you use if his water bill gets any higher from trying to get meal soot out of his work clothes and the soup of the day off of yours. 7. Hang a taut line. Keep a clothespin in your mouth as if smoking a cigarette while your friend Donna from work finishes your hoagie because her daughter ate hers and you gave yours up for adoption. 8. Group clothes and hang together, except don't put your 33D Hooter holders next to Donna's AAA because you know who will figure out you've been washing her clothes since she got fired and kick your ass all the way to the laundromat. 9. Have a cigarette on the porch while the clothes dry. Then check on your dying uncle next door as soon as your father stops yelling about you getting another pay cut so you'll never get the hell out of his house. 10. Get rid of the wasp nest near the line because 20 Horns is too cheap to hire an exterminator and says you'll blow them away with your smoker's cough. Tell him smoking like a chimney ain't as bad as him smoking what a stack at the mill belches out, so he'll get the cancer, not you. 11. Take clothes down from the line, then see if you can offer to change your uncle's pillowcase next door because it's moist from his shallow breath, and you suddenly need to see him to see you wearing the beads he gave you, if he remembers why. 12. Fold the clothes. Out of respect for your uncle, plan to wear a clean uniform from the basket to visit the funeral home someday soon. Then go straight to work rather than call in sick. You want to believe in what he told you. There you are. Sorry, I lost you on the screen. Okay. All right, I'm going to read two more of these poems in the beginning and then move toward a little bit of a different tone toward the end. This one is called Cigarettes and Coffee. Wish the hell he'd take a vacation so I wouldn't have to wash his work clothes on my day off. I got my own uniform to clean, waffle batter, soup mix, grease from the fryers. Good thing is that 20 Horns' clothes are so smoky, I can have my cigarette while doing his load. I can spill my coffee on them, and it don't matter. They're so sooty, I don't waste my bleach. The gray they get is lighter than black, and come the next day, black is always darker than gray. Now, when is he going to learn to empty his pockets out? It figures, no cash. This juicy fruit is going straight in the trash. I should wash his union card and see if his name comes off. I'd write in mine, find me work that pays like his. Unc wants better for me, something along the lines of a female position. J.C. Penney's would be nice. Montgomery Ward's is across the river. But I could do my old man's job. I got muscle. I could beat the crap out of a lump of coal or a beam of steel, whatever he does. I smoke 3 packs a day, so nothing that goes up his nose is news to me. I'll put it on my application papers, make me qualified, buy me a house bigger than his. Okay, one last from the beginning of this book. It's called Coal, Fire, Smoke. It's on page 11. 1. Nothing left but her ashes. The yard a pit of cigarette butts. She crosses over to say a few words to her neighbor's widowed dad. A lump of tan man visiting from Georgia. You're looking good, Mr. Slater. That much I can see, love bug. And under the surface of khaki, a lump of wallet that burns and burns steady. 2. Please, call me Wally. She offers to keep house for him, iron his boxer shorts with creases, heat up beef pot pies in the oven until peas flame on the fork. Wally puts his hand on her shoulder and smiles. I'm old enough to be your father. 3. Her dad charges over, mouth wide open, his breath spiraling in her face. He's ready to yell at her, but doesn't when Wally says, sounds like your daughter must be good to have around the house. She doesn't want to hear his answer, leaves to put out her butt, one long cylinder of ash, ready to flake and fall. Okay, now moving on toward 3 poems toward the middle end of this collection. It's called The Laundress. 1. Sheets are wet, worrisome mounds in the basket. Socks, a pair of sorry balls dripping in self-pity. Underwear, a limp limbo of cotton blends, no longer soaking wet and not yet dry, waiting to be hung by a woman who scrubs away original sin on a rock along the stream with her hands and the strength of resolve. 2. Sheets are hung on the line, socks clipped at the heel, drawers droop with fear of never taking shape from human proportion. A clothesline low in the middle, as if bowing its head, waiting to be propped up by a woman who raises this offering that much closer to where the air gathers puffs of wind with breath enough for divine intention. This next one is called Blow Out the Candles. There was no twister out her window, no gale spinning a black cloud. She mused at the shingled pyramid floating above her. She dreamt her father climbed a ladder and tried to yank the roof down. Her uncle attempted to use reason. How long could it defy gravity? How long before she pictured a baby in her arms? Each hiccup, lifting the roof, lowering it, until she put the child on her breast, and the roof grew still. But she missed the sky. She missed its blue mission, the clouds that pillowed her thoughts and elevated them to dream. She blew out her baby's candle, and as the pyramid drifted off, she knew it was her own breath, reaching for the possibility of air. And I have one last poem for you. It's called Air Patterns. It's on page 65. Air patterns. She pins panties on the line between buxom clouds round with water weight. Her bra is beside two padded patches lifted by the breeze. A slip next to a thin layer of overcast. Once it begins to rain, the wind picks up in circles and feathers. The clothesline rises and falls with thunder. Pins hold on, clouds float up, undergarments fall. She runs with her basket to gather them from the grass and sees a butterfly land on the eyes of a child who wishes to be awakened from sleep. Thank you.
Thank you, Paola. Yes, that's right. Thank you very much. Kat, you want to read next?
Yes, I'd love to.
Great.
Oh, thank you. And I want to thank you, Marianne, and thank the visionary Joan, and thank Dimitri and everyone at CavanKerry who've been unutterably kind and patient with me. I'm going to start with some poems from Wonderama, which is the book that's coming out in February on from CavanKerry.
Great.
And this is called Grandma. Mischief made her lift her arms and turn with such a look of wonder on her face that I was not afraid to see the flames licking along both sleeves of her flannel robe, but stepped back, as one does from an act of God, the better to take in her glittering pale green eyes, her pirate's nose, the few yellow teeth in her little open mouth. As my mother, her own mouth open in a scream, rushed up behind her to yank off the burning robe and the blazing robe and dance on its burning. And Grandma, naked, jubilant, winked at me while the kettle shrieked its way to boiling dry and sent me from some far hilltop in her far world a vision of what it was certain I'd become. Wild-eyed and crazy and blazing like a six gun, nothing at all to be met with shame or fear. So this is for her who now has long been ash, a chronicle, the last word of which is oh. I grew up in South Paterson, New Jersey, and at some point in my young life, someone we'll call Franny moved into town and was my age and was going to my school, and I was supposed to show her the ropes. So this is for Franny, and it's called New Girl in Town. Cross the street, Franny, if ever you spy Joe Moe, whose hand-hewn tar paper shack we approach on bets or pitch chunks of pudding stone at from moving cars. You'll want, too, to skirt Donna's uncles, drunk and jolly, who'll sneak through your screen door with snow cones and try to kiss you, and Ronnie V, who just got out of Rahway. We're not supposed to know what got him there. And St. Ag's School is an iron maiden of dangers, though statues of saints peer out of each dusky corner, and Jesus, his plaster self, tops the entrance stairs, where one day he stared at a second grader's vomit, hand held before his exposed and flaming heart, as if to express distaste for incarnation. Expect more shame to be handed out than blessings, administered lavishly both in word and deed. For girls, 18 inches of steel on open palms. For boys, once slung across a nun's black lap, lusty wax on the seats of their regulation pants. So that's about it, Fran, except for that candy store where the old guy gives out wax lips for Halloween and ends of cold cuts to the dogs he lets inside. He'll say, "Sweetheart, you look pale. Are you on the rag?" If you're hungry, Franny, tell him yes. He'll put his hand on your stomach and then on your forehead and then tell you you're clammy, then toast you a piece of toast. And here's another Franny adventure. This is called Hitter. We pick the gravel out of the fallen pears and eat them with Wonder Bread and squirts of ketchup, which, Franny, you learned to do because of me, just like you learned to embroider and draw a horse. And what do I learn from you? To avoid your father, to not expect a hot dog when he cooks out. And no offense, but I can't eat your mom's macaroni. It's served in the dishpan she uses to shave her legs. And when one day I share with you just what I think of your brother, who you yourself say is as smart as a carnival goldfish, you tell me my mother is old and my nose is big, then punch me in my big nose and turn and run. So I grab my baseball bat and chase you home, kick open your front door the second you slam it, and there sits your father composing a mayonnaise sandwich and not too happy to find me dropping in. He hollers, "Hey, where you going with that damn bat?" And real fast I answer, "Oh, Franny asked for it," which, if you're honest, you have to admit is funny. Then I whack you in your pink curlers and run like hell. And this is called JC and Me in the summer of '64. And this takes place in South Patterson to this character in this poem. JC and Me in the summer of '64. Catholicism and puberty duked it out the summer my body broke out of its corral and galloped Patterson streets in search of sugar through the new and luscious grasses of impure thought. The priest I confessed to dismissed me as overly scrupulous. I was thinking too much about thinking of dirty things and distracted because the word scrupulous starts with screw. I left with a head full of sin and 2 holy cards, which he passed me as if they were discards in holy strip poker, a game I imagined both entertained and instructed. The first was Saint Agatha, Sicily's virgin martyr, her eyes rolled up to God as often mine were. She would not renounce him, despite the terrible tortures he could, being God, have simply plucked her from. If it were me, I'd have just said, "Jesus, who?" Then cantered right out of there with my virgin self and ducked behind the bleachers at Hinchliffe Stadium. The second holy card was Jesus himself, bathed in a golden light and softly smiling, halo tipped back, and eyes beaming mercy and mirth. I hadn't noticed till then how handsome he was. Eyes like blue poppies, a nose I regarded with envy, wavy auburn hair with a center part. I pictured the halls of St. Joe's full of boys in caftans, and me with my black hair tossing in the hot pink short shorts that got me suspended from school. Imagine, I thought, when he too was confused and changing, not quite a man yet, and almost, but not quite, God. Hear me calling his name, though he's already heading towards me. The August wind blowing his robe between his legs, the power to miracle lighting his holy face, a gingery fuzz on his lip, and an eager smile telling me I have powers too. At my nearness, his thoughts will cleave the Patterson Falls, send beer cans and tires jouncing down McBride, and cause the all-the-way hot dogs at Libby's lunch to vault like angels from their very secret sauce. Okay, and I'm going to read 2 from my beloved little lavender book. Thank you so much, Joan. And this is called Momentum. And I'm going to read a poem called Outboard, because the person in this poem had a father who used to, go to a bar every night and often bring things home, like a box of rocks that said color TV on it that he bought for $25. Or a pit bull puppy came home once an outboard motor. And this is about that. Outboard. A drinking buddy gave our dad an outboard motor. Dad kept it up to its orange chin and bilge in an oil drum up in the yard. And after a few, he'd go out and start it up, yelling, "Get back, you kids!" But we were already back and ready to bolt if the green plastic men we'd thrown in up and busted the thing. But no tiny acid-stripped skeletons churned to the surface. The army remained at rest with the worms and the pear cores. All that spring, when he felt good, he'd go watch his motor, his nostrils straining to catch each oily fume, a Chesterfield dropping ash down the front of his work shirt. Once, Shaky Louie, his pal, braved the terrible sunlight to join him in motor watching, and, chatty by nature, told us Dad had said soon that our freezer'd be so full of trout there wouldn't be room left for even one skinny popsicle. By August, we'd scrawled SS Dad on the slimy oil drum, but he never noticed, just stood in the din, smoking, staring. He never did lug that motor out of the oil drum. He let winter do in the only toy he had, though it spat muddy rainbows and roared like a locomotive and gave off the piercing and molten stink of hope. And Momentum, which I dedicate to all of you out there who've gone down mountains in barrels. If you have it, well, get out there and do it. You'll never forget it. This is called Momentum. Your friends won't try to talk you out of the barrel or your brag to go first, which has nothing to do with bravery. And you're so hungry to earn their love, you forget to claim first your perhaps last look at this mountain. Crab apples hanging sour in the sun, abandoned Buick, a favorite place to play, dismantled and weathered and delicate as a voting booth. Instead, you dive straight away and head first into darkness, the steel drum that dusts you like a chicken part with rust. Looking out, there's nothing to see of your friends but their calves, which are scabby, and below them the filthy sneakers, shifting, every foot aching to kick you off this cliff. Their faces, you know, are blank with anticipation, the look you see when they watch TV eating popcorn. They're already talking about you as if you're gone, as if you boarded a bus and roared out of earshot when one foot flashes forward and launches you. You know, as you feel that first solid slam, you are lost. The barrel changes shape with each crash to earth, as you will later, assuming and losing lives. But this is so true now. Ankles flayed to the bone, cracked ribs and crushed mint, the brittle, pissy sumac. Right now, the pin oaks are popping in their sockets. The hillside wears your shoes, clouds, pleat, and buck. You know, of course, that no one's going second, and friends who tell this story will use the word idiot, rolling their hands in the air. But you know what your life is for now, and rise up and just about scalp yourself on that tree limb above you. Another thing you couldn't possibly know was coming. Another which, like your first breath, was not your idea. Okay, and I'll close with another one from Wonderama. Let's see. Okay. This is called Gnomon, which you word freaks out there, and you know who you are. No is the little stand-up thing on the sundial that casts the shadow. It's called Gnomon. Softly lit in a murk of amniotic dust, the only two faces in the hallway of St. Ag's School. A clock with its echoing voice and shifty hands, and a girl in a cloud of perplexity and distinction, the only third grader who cannot learn to tell time. Told to return only when she can name the hour, she watches the red hand hiccup around the track and the longer black one skip forward click by click, and the shorter black one, like her, not do much at all. Teachers lean from their doorways to witness her fecklessness, then turn like the painted figures in cuckoo clocks to vanish into the movements of their classrooms. She is likely to grasp the time as to knit a sock. Standing and dozing, she jumps at the bell for prayers, those words she knows by rote, if not by heart, that are spoken each day at this time, just as God likes to hear them, with thou and thee and sorry we sinned again. She's been praying already for hours for understanding, which, like the pony she begged for all last year, she realizes she never will possess. But still, since it's time to address the all-knowing Father, whose workings, like the clocks, are a mystery, the girl casts her small shadow and weeps for a miracle and covers her glowing face with obedient hands. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Kat. That's wonderful. Just a little aside, this semester, Kat and Tina Kelly and Carol Stone were just gearing up to work with my students right when the pandemic hit. So so we actually had a little bit of introduction to some of these poems that are actually in the classroom on campus. So it's wonderful to hear you read them. What a treat, Kat. Thank you so much. Okay, Cindy.
All right. Well, thank you, Marianne. I'm really happy to be here, and also happy to have CavanKerry here, my dream press, you know, Gabriel, Dimitri, and Jonathan. So I'm going to read from my book, Gloved Against Blood. And the poems in this collection explore inherited histories, and it's set against the backdrop of the 19th century textile mills of Lowell, Massachusetts. My great-grandmother emigrated from Quebec, along with many other French Canadians, to work as a mill girl in one of the mills in Lowell, which was called the Boot Cotton. So I was never a history buff. That was my brother who majored in history, and I really surprised myself in that I wrote a book that really looked at history and used it as a lens to explore not just the theme of labor and industry, but also using history to look at personal history, you know, marriage, divorce, and senility. And also woven throughout is needlework, something that women at the mill do in the evenings when their shifts were over, and also something that has been passed down in my family. And the interesting thing for me about needlework was the fact that it's very precise, and yet over time it unravels. So the first few poems I'll read are they're more mill-oriented, and then the latter poems I'll read tend to go more into personal history. The first poem is called How a Community Women, and this is actually the first poem I wrote about this, and it triggered this entire manuscript. How a Community of Women. How my French-Canadian great-grandmother, great-aunts, toiled 13 hours a day in the textile mills of Lowell, Massachusetts. How weak the light when they left the boarding house each morning. How screaming starlings flash mobbed them along the way. They sucked thread through the eye of their foot-long wooden shuttles that fed the cotton to the looms. How they called that quick motion of their lips the kiss of death. How they could not converse over the cacophonic clickety-clack of 500 howling looms. How they walked back in ear-ringing darkness, had dinner, then took up their needlework, crochet, crewel, cross, knitting, mending, quilting, darning, close work, women's work. My mother taught me, her mother taught her, her mother taught her. The mills were built along rivers because the rivers, the power of the water actually drove the power the mills used. So this poem mentions a few of the New England rivers. Great Red Wall. This is the Merrimack, Charles, the Concord, and this, the red brick of mills, the home and west that lured them from their failing farms to toil cotton into cloth 13 hours a day. And this red brick on brick on brick is all that's left of sweat and empty lungs. Can you see them years later in these offices, these cubicles, these cute boutiques with clothes made in Bangladesh, or sitting in the hip cafes that sell espresso 15 ways? Here is where they spent their days, where factory bells rang come and done. One of the techniques I used in the poem is persona. So I wrote a number of persona poems which are based on research I did, particularly with a book called The Lowell Offering, which was a literary journal for the women who worked in the mills, where they could write down their experiences in poems or little stories. So I tried to imagine what life was like for them in these poems, how it resists. And sometimes it's too much. These aisles of crowded looms, their stanchions of white thread spooling like udders, my needy shuttles of flowering dogwood, for its hardness, for how it resists splintering, for the way it loves to be polished smooth. Some days the floor slants, the room seems cockeyed, light muddles, too slim for eyes to see the eye, and the whole mill howls as if cotton were milk, the way two mirrors held just right create an infinity of eye. It's another person. After the first week, I'm getting used to the hurry of things, obeying the bells, banter of a room of looms set end to end to end, barefoot doffers running up the aisles, switching out our bobbins. The skinny mites swore in, they climb the looms to reach, how lithe their tiny fingers. In between, the boss lets them play marbles in the mill yard. I hear them tell each other small hopes. The one who does the shawl dance in the alley plans to run away, join the circus, be a lion tamer. We all have aspirations as the clattering machines ring our ears all day. The doffers tended to be children, actually, because they would, they could climb up and replace the bobbins quickly. The livelihood of the mills not only depended on the labor of the mill girls, but it also depended on the labor of enslaved African Americans in the South. And this next poem addresses Francis Cabot Lowell. He was the founder of the first textile mill was able to transform raw cotton into cloth under one roof. So basically the raw cotton would come in one end of the mill and leave as product. And because of that, it was a revolutionary technique. It increased productivity and the demand for cotton. This poem incorporates some lines from Lucy Larcom, who was a mill girl and an abolitionist. And the poem is a ghazal, which is a form which repeats a specific word at the end of each couplet. Dear Francis Cabot Lowell, how is it you don't see all down the row? Blood bobbins, all down the row. I've heard fields of white bowls, each puff turned up to the sun, are beautiful by the row. But at what price the accursed fiber that threads your looms all in a row? Every day I feel that I am sinning against the light to stay still in a row. Turn those fields 10,000 times. The blood of souls in bondage will thicken by the row. Francis, you are the sin, not these cloven white perennials planted in a row. They bleed, I weave, they bleed. Why can't you see blood threads your looms all down the row? So now I'm going to shift into a little bit more of the personal history poems. And these two I'll read do incorporate sort of needlework and that sort of history of women working with cloth, yarn, and notions. Mother of pearl and bone buttons, coats and dark thread. I'd sort and touch every notion in her basket with its silk loops for thimbles and pine posts for bobbins. First day of school outfits, hems, elbow, and knee patches she conjured from that basket. I need some notions, meant a trip to Woolworth's, ice cream at the soda fountain for me, every flavor of rick-rack, bias tape, grosgrain for her. How she could darn socks by the hour, create buttonholes by hand. Always kept her notions organized, neat, so she could find what she needed. A rhinestone button, safety pin, scarlet embroidery floss to stitch, I love you. She said a woman could never have enough. Fabric could unravel, split, fray, but a woman with notions could mend what was torn, make it like new, button up against his absence. This poem is called French Seams. There's an epigraph from Alice Moore Dunbar Nelson. The little useless seam, the idle patch, this pretty feudal seam. From Nanny Parkerow, I learned to sew French seams. Seams that hide raw edges within the seam itself. Seams that won't unravel, that are neat, even on the wrong side. Finished, she'd say. Seams that take planning, accurate estimating, extra fabric, each one folded over twice. Making allowances, she called it. Hers were meticulous, unrivaled. She could be counted on to hold. They never ripped or frayed. Still, the marriage unraveled early. She had to stitch shoes at McElwain's and at Nashua and raise a latchkey kid. When Social Security could not sustain her, she came to live with us. Garters stitched dish rags, all she could manage when senility set in. From Nanny Parkerow, I learned to hide raw edges within the scene itself, each one folded over twice, making allowances, she called it. Even on the wrong side, I would not rip or fray. I would be counted on to hold. I would be neat, meticulous, unrivaled. It would take planning, accurate estimating, extra fabric. Still traveled, stitch and stitch, fold and fold and fold, all that extra yardage. I could not salvage us. Finished, say. Okay, I'll read 3 more poems from the book. And The Other Woman. My grandfather did not come back. Instead, he saw his girlfriend knocking on the door to ask, please, grant him a divorce. My mother, age 2, peekaboo with the slitter and hair coat with painted nails. And my young grandmother in her thin house dress, a pocket full of rosary beads, gold-plated crucifix tapped on her collarbone like a metronome. For she believed that her Mary Knowles went to the mass, confessed to the gauzy man shadow who at the end mined his blessing, made his hand a steeple that knifed the air she breathed as he pronounced her penance, which could erase every black mark but one. No, not for any number of our fathers. This she knew and never questioned. Even at the moment, the slightly made-up woman stood before her, both feet firmly planted on the threshold, mouthing, please. And, ordinary art. Once you spoke French, you say, and sometime there was bread, du pain, with milk and sugar before bed. Once there was creamed tuna on toast with green peas, ribbon candy that cut your tongue, and later cigarettes instead of lollipops or bubble gum. Once you believed in God, you say, then he, votre père, walked out, and your mother made an ulcer. After that, it was white bread, dinners, whatever it took to coat her pain. What happens now as you disappear, she did, brain cell by brain cell. Story. And okay, the last, this about a field trip that my daughter took in middle school to the actual mill, the boot cotton mills that would have been her great grandmother worked as a mill girl. Field trip, boot cotton mills. Is it too much to hope for a strand of you? It's possible I was born imprinted, beginning with loom, from the old word jalom, stitched beside my fate line, so I may salvage our history, what you wished for, why you came. I wish to open my hand and find you my daughter's age, running 3 or 4 looms, deaf to the clatter, pedals and shuttles ringing ears 13 hours a day. I tell her, your great-grandmother emigrated from Canada to work in those mills. After she comes home from school with a swatch of cloth she wove, as I finger its flawed lines. I must teach her how, as we pass through the eye of our coming and going, that you may lead us to the fell, the point where the warp and wax become cloth. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I guess, let's open this up for questions to any of the poets. So please, those of you in my class, feel free to ask or direct your question to any one of the poets, or if you just have a general question for all of them, that's fine too. And please, any of the other people attending, if you want to chime in or have a question, please feel free.
Hi, Marianne. That's Dimitri. I think I have a really good one to kind of get the ball rolling here.
Good.
And that was coming from Gabriel. I missed the reading yesterday, but Gabriel did say that there were questions about persona poems.
Yes.
So I wanted to open that up to Cindy and then everyone else, and kind of just give us a synopsis or just kind of your what's what in terms of persona. So Cindy, when you're writing a persona, how are you able to step into that character or that speaker and still have that objective distance?
Yeah, I mean, it's a journey, and it's a lot of research. So reading a lot of the stories from the Lowell offering and other sources to sort of immerse myself, and then I also visited the mills a few times to see where they were, to be able to visualize it. And they actually they run the machines up there, so you can hear what the noise is like. But yeah, it takes time to get into the mindset, and again, a lot of research.
I was especially interested in your choice of the ghazal form. I guess I'm not pronouncing it right. Ghazal.
There's a lot of ways to say it.
Yeah.
What?
There's many ways to say it.
All right. And especially, it just seemed so perfectly suited to the poem's content, and the lines of looms. And did you, something I think about a lot myself in terms of using formal verse, did you have the idea that this was going to be a ghazal from the beginning, or as you were writing, did you think, maybe some repetition here, maybe some couplets? How did that happen for you?
Usually for me, it's happened after. So I write the poem, and then it feels like it needs to be in a form. And I don't have as many forms in this book, but in my next book, there are more formal poems. Again, historical. I found it was a way into the material too, that I needed the form to contain it, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. Great way of putting it. I guess one of the things, I'm going to just jump in here again. I guess one of the things that interested me about all three poets today is the way that the way that memory works. And, of course, memory happens for a lot of us, but obviously in our poems. But I think I was just very drawn into your memories, Paola, Catherine, and Cindy, and the way that, even though in many ways your upbringings and backgrounds were very different from mine, occasionally there would be this wonderful detail that, pulled me right into the poem, like the waxed lips and so many other things. And, when we often tell our students, no ideas but in things, of course, you're bringing a life to us through these tiny details. Wonderful, wonderful readings. Thank you.
I also felt the same way. I thought the readings were just beautiful and so well complemented each other. I'm so thrilled that CavanKerry has brought out these books and will bring out more. I think memory basically it's the root of all of our stories. And I think it's what makes us interesting.
Yeah.
It is the details that come to life and are so engaging and also so intimate.
Yes.
you know, and so one feels is likely to trust that speaker and listen even that much more intently. I'm just very honored and blessed to have all of you as CavanKerry poets. It's quite extraordinary.
Lucky us. Lucky them.
Yeah, we're lucky. And I think CavanKerry, it's bringing lives to life. You know, that's your
so awesome.
That's your mission. And and this is about memory. And it's, you know, one of the things that I'm sort of obsessed with is the idea of details, how someone's entire life comes down to a detail, a sentence even, you know, and the whole idea of trying to preserve, even if it's, you know, a mill girl who is long gone and we know of her, but to somehow honor her life, you know.
Absolutely.
Memory as much as we can of that is just, to me, it's sort of a mission, you know, to not forget these people. And you allow that to happen, CavanKerry, by putting these books in the world, you know.
It's an honor. I love it, and I actually have been reading the CavanKerry over, basically looking for poems that will potentially go into the anthology that we're putting together for the 20th anniversary. And I'm in love. I mean, it's just such a thrill to read all of this work again and know that you're all out there doing the work of poetry and responding to the need for more personal work, more access to the emotional, which brings people alive. So that's my dream, and so you're fulfilling it for me.
Yeah, and one thing I was just going to chime in, and also to say it's really nice to see you all, that I always like to say about the books that we publish is when, for a reader to pick it up, it's like you step into another person's world, you know, the world of whoever wrote the book. And the books that we've chosen are such that you really get to inhabit that world for, you know, 100 pages or so, and walk around in it and just let it expand your own world, so that when you are done with the book, everything is a little bigger, a little sharper. And I love that about our books. So it's a privilege to get to read
them. I wanted to say something about Catherine's poems and about your use of humor. You know, I found myself laughing out loud, and you do this very tricky thing. You get us really laughing, and then you break our hearts. And that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Oh, good. Thanks so much. Thank you so much. You're so kind.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
I just wanted to read something one of the students said. Carla, you want to bring, that's a really wonderful comment you made. Do you want to say that yourself, or?
Yeah, I could say it.
Okay.
So I put, this isn't really like a question, but I said how it was a comment, how it's really cool to see how like connected a lot of you are and how supportive like all of the poets are with one another. And it's like different? Like if I pick up a book or like a poem and I read like, oh, this is like by Cat Doty or by like Cindy, like it's different like just reading the name than like seeing you guys in video and like actually hearing you guys be on a more personal level and having them read their own poems.
Yes.
So I thought it
Yeah.
was like really cool because it's different like just picking up a book and being like, oh, like I don't know, like Amanda wrote this book, than like actually like learning about Amanda and like seeing Amanda and have her read her own content. So I thought this was cool.
Thank you. That's a really good testimony to the importance of attending readings, which is one of the things we're always talking about in class. So thank you, Carla. That really underscores that. And I'm so glad we had the opportunity to do this, because I felt like that was going to be lost to us at the beginning of the pandemic. So if you came in a little late to the meeting, that's my big thanks to CavanKerry for making this possible, and for Dimitri for all his work putting it together. I thought I might ask a question of all three of you, that kind of all three of the poets reading today, that kind of maybe ties together a little bit of what we've been looking at. This whole notion of this, how to sort of weave together history and memory, and, you know, just that question of how much research. Actually, I think it's so interesting because a lot of times when we pick up a book, we think it's all just memory. But it's interesting that a lot of research does go into writing a book of poems, and we sometimes don't, you know, really think about that. So I wondered if the three of you could maybe say a little bit about that, the process of weaving together memory and history.
Well, I know for this, for the Laundress book is a bit different than some of the other books that I've written that really have done a lot of research, historical research. But in the case of this particular book, there is a history, a personal history of knowing my cousin, and, you know, knowing the family environment and the laundry and how it was done. It was just like what, was it Kathy? I'm sorry, the name, Cindy? In the mills, you would go and visit the mills and see, well, how do these, you know, run, and what do they do with the thread, and then what happens? Well, that's kind of what I did, sitting on the porch and just watching my cousin, and she had a real modus operandi of how she, you know, hung up the laundry. It wasn't, you know, there was a method there. And so it's just, I think, having the keen eye, whether it's something personal and it's a family member you're observing, or you're going into a mill, a factory, and being, you know, given a tour and you observe. It's the same thing. Your eyes have to be very, very focused and very observant of details, fine details. And I think that that's what we're acknowledging, is this is what makes for incredibly strong writing. We're going to remember those wax lips. I tell you, remember those.
Yes.
And, you know, it jogs our memories. And even if it's, no, I never got the wax lips when I went to my little, you know, corner store. I got the wafer satellite wafers, remember, that have the little things and you could shake them, rattle them. You know, that's what good poetry does, is whether you can identify with it or not, it's triggering something that you can think through and access your memories. And, you know, memory is a way of preserving, it's preservation. You know, I've written about things that no longer exist, and people, the characters in this book, for example, you know, two of them are deceased now, and so it's so important. They're on that page. Nobody is going to take that away. Nobody will take that away, and that's really important, I think, that we preserve. And then perhaps memory becomes a form of activism. What do you do with this memory? Do you take this memory and march forward, remembering, you know, and so it depends on how we operate in the world and what our passions are and so forth. But it also can be that as well.
Yeah. Good point.
Well said.
So I guess for me, my book started with my mother started to lose her memory. She started to have dementia, and I wanted to hear more about her stories, which she hadn't talked a lot about. Her grandma, who had immigrated, who worked in the mills, and she started talking more about these stories, and I wanted to learn as much as I could. And it was a combination of her memories and then me doing the research, because it was a way into her personal memory, really, for me to do all this research and learn more about the mills and the mill girls, and to preserve family history, really. I mean, it really drove that project, and, beyond what I had ever imagined.
I should probably pay my therapist for the research that I do, because I'm not relentlessly self-referential, but I draw from stories. I want to tell stories. I don't do much else. And, I glean, I think, oh, that's an interesting childhood. Maybe, we could pull some stuff out of there. And that's about the research I do. I fact check, of course. But I'm not in the middle of some project that involves my knowing something specific, about an event or situation other than my own.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
My microphone was turned off and I wanted to comment, and I realized that you couldn't hear me. But when a student was saying how wonderful it was for all of us to read together and have questions and have our press with us and dialoguing and so forth, and I can say, and I know you all know this, but there's going to be a day where we're going to do this in person again, and
Yes.
we're going to be with each other, and it will be incredible. If this is very satisfying to us, when we really are physically together in a community, it will be wonderful, and that day will come again. So I look forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly right. And I'm excited to know that Joan is putting together a 20th anniversary book of poems from CavanKerry. Thank you for sharing that news with us too. And would be excited for reading to come out of that, right? All the poems, all the poets in that 20th anniversary edition. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It's really a book that that is honors the poets,
right?
Because the press has a good life because it has fine poets who are also good people, which is pretty amazing. That are part of this community that the student was talking about before. It's this kind of intimacy is very common, and in CavanKerry readings, and it's a wonderful thing to be a part of. So I think the idea of being part of a community is critical, in that it's so easy for us to focus only on our own perspective and get caught up in our own lives and our own poetry lives. So to have a community that we feel connected to is very affirming, and many of you were talking about memory before, and I saw myself hanging sheets on the line. Like, you know, I also was impressed with the red lips, and I remember them. You know? So in a lot of ways, the work is a gift, not only for the for its literary value, and the pure pleasure of hearing and reading good writing, but also just to remind us of our own history and bring us back to memories that, you know, maybe we haven't been in touch with for a long time. That's quite delightful to have those moments. Yeah.
I guess we could close today. I'm not quite understanding what all this background noise is. But anyway, I want to thank all the students who came today. I know you're very busy with a lot of different classes and all the different times that things are meeting. It's very confusing. So thank you for coming. Thank you. Tomorrow Judith will be reading at 4. So, and
looking forward to it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Me too.
Thank you for including us.
So, yeah. So thank you so much. And yes, thanks, Carla. You guys are quicker at writing the notes than I am. I'm not so good at the chapter. Anyway, okay, so we'll close, which is always a little sad to close, but it's so good to see everyone's faces and everybody be well. Thank you.
You too.
Absolutely.
All right, see you all tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Glad you
So
could come.
wonderful.
Good to see you, Kat, Paola, and
Thank you so much.
Cindy.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And then nice to see all the staff too.
Yeah, it's good to have that opportunity right now.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And Gabe and Dimitri, it was when we were talking about community, it was so cool the way you guys reached out to us like a family to see how we were doing. Were we okay? I mean, what publisher does that? I mean, that was so beautiful. So thank you.
Yes.
Well, we
And I know
really,
Joan was in on that too. Thank you so much.
yeah, we believe in it when we say that we have a family of authors in CavanKerry's library, and you know, we have to back our words with our actions, you know. So it's our pleasure to be able to reach out to you and hear back from you all the good news and even the bad news when it happens, you know, be there through all that. So
Well, thank you all for teaching my students what a wonderful thing it is to be a part of a community, because I think they couldn't learn anything more important.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.